In a distant future, the earth had flourished under a golden age of peace. People lived their lives in harmony, unaware that the universe around them was filled with dangers far beyond their understanding. The humans had long since forgotten the old legends of galactic warfare, believing that peace would last forever. But in the quietest of moments, a storm was brewing in the distant corners of space, one that would change everything. It began with an unassuming discovery. A young scientist named Alex lived in a small town on Earth. He was passionate about studying the strange and mysterious creatures of the universe, especially those from distant planets. His life was quiet, almost too quiet. His work with exotic creatures was what kept him going. He had one particular pet, an unusual and rare species, a large blue-striped tiger he had found during an expedition. Its fur shimmered with vibrant colors, and its eyes glowed like molten gold. Everyone in the town thought Alex was a little eccentric, keeping such a powerful creature as a pet. They didn't know the full story. Alex had found the creature in a hidden alien jungle during one of his travels, and he had raised it since it was a cub. The tiger, named Charon, was unlike any animal on Earth. Though fierce in appearance, Charon was gentle with Alex, and their bond grew stronger every day. One evening, while Alex was walking Charon near the outskirts of town, something strange happened. A ship appeared in the sky, brighter than any star. It was not a normal aircraft, nor was it from any known country. The town's peaceful atmosphere shattered as the ship descended, its engines roaring like thunder. The people gathered, fear beginning to creep into their hearts. Out of the craft emerged beings unlike anything the humans had ever seen. They were tall, alien, and draped in golden armor. Their skin glowed with a strange light, and their eyes burned with an intensity that made the earthlings shiver. These were no ordinary visitors. They were the Kalanar, a race of ancient warriors who had traveled across the stars for millennia. Their mission was simple but terrifying: to conquer, to enslave, and to control all civilizations they encountered. The Kalanar had been watching Earth for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. They had studied the humans, learning their strengths and weaknesses. The peaceful nature of Earth had made the Kalanar think the humans would be easy to defeat. They underestimated one thing, though. They underestimated the bond between Alex and Charon. As the Kalanar moved into the town, demanding submission and promising destruction for those who resisted, Alex's heart raced. This was the moment he feared, the moment when the Earth would be torn apart. But as the aliens approached, Charon stood tall beside Alex. The tiger's fierce gaze met the Kalanar's warriors with a defiant stare, as if it knew the danger they posed. Without warning, Charon let out a low, growling roar that echoed through the town. The Kalanar hesitated, startled by the power and intelligence in the creature's eyes. They had never encountered anything like it before. Alex could feel the tension in the air, but he also felt something stirring deep within him, a sense of responsibility, a sense of duty to protect his world and the people he loved. The Kalanar demanded that Alex give them the creature, claiming it was a threat to their superiority. But Alex refused. "Charon is not just a pet," he said, his voice trembling but filled with determination. "He's a part of me, and he's more powerful than you think." The Kalanar laughed at him, dismissing his words as the ramblings of a fool. But something about Charon's presence unsettled them. They were used to seeing planets bend to their will, to seeing their enemies cower before their might. But Charon wasn't cowering. It was standing strong, as if waiting for the right moment to strike. As the Kalanar advanced, ready to attack, Alex felt a strange surge of energy from Charon. The tiger's body shimmered with a radiant light, and its eyes glowed even brighter. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He realized for the first time that Charon wasn't just a powerful creature, it was something far more important. It was a guardian, a protector, and it was about to show the Kalanar just how wrong they were. But The question remained, could this creature, this pet, really be powerful enough to stop an entire army of invaders? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, the fate of Earth was about to change forever. The Kalanar soldiers stood motionless for a brief moment, trying to comprehend what they were seeing. Alex's words echoed in their minds, but they quickly dismissed them. They had never seen a creature like Charon before, and they certainly didn't believe it could pose any serious threat to them. The Kalanar were used to striking fear into the hearts of their enemies, making entire planets kneel before them. But now they felt a strange unease. Alex's heart raced as he stood in front of Charon, protective and resolute. Charon's glowing eyes stared down the Kalanar with unwavering confidence. The tiger, despite its calm demeanor, was no longer just a pet, it was something more, something ancient. Alex didn't fully understand it, but the energy he felt radiating from Charon was undeniable. It was as though a dormant power had suddenly awakened within the creature. Something inside it had shifted. The Kalanar leader, a towering figure adorned in gold and black armor, stepped forward. His voice was cold and commanding as he spoke. "You dare resist us? You and your creature are insignificant in the face of the Kalanar. Surrender now, or face destruction." Alex's eyes narrowed. He could feel the weight of the decision on his shoulders. This wasn't just about him or Charon anymore. It was about the entire world, the people he had spent his life protecting. Earth's future was at stake, and he couldn't let these invaders destroy everything he held dear. "No," Alex said, his voice steady, though his hands trembled slightly. "We will never surrender. You've made a mistake coming here. Charon isn't just my pet. He's a protector." The Kalanar leader sneered, his eyes flashing with anger. "A protector? This beast is nothing compared to the might of the Kalanar Empire. It will fall before us like all others." At that moment, Charon let out another roar, this one louder and more powerful than before. The ground beneath them trembled, and the air seemed to crackle with energy. The Kalanar soldiers flinched, their confidence wavering for the first time. Charon's body shimmered with an ethereal light, its fur glowing with an intensity that matched the sunrise. The tiger's muscles tensed, and its eyes, once golden, now burned with a fierce, otherworldly power. In that instant, Alex realized what was happening. Charon wasn't just an animal, it was a guardian, a force of nature, and something far older and more powerful than any of them could have imagined. The energy that Charon radiated wasn't just from its physical strength, but from something deeper, a connection to the universe itself, a connection that had been dormant for centuries. The Kalanar leader raised his hand, signaling for his soldiers to advance, but before they could take another step, Charon lunged forward. The tiger moved with blinding speed, its glowing form a blur of light. The soldiers tried to react, but they were too slow. Charon's massive paws struck the ground with a thunderous impact, sending shockwaves that knocked the Kalanar off their feet. The leader shouted orders, but they were drowned out by the roar of the tiger. Charon moved like a predator on the hunt, its eyes fixed on the Kalanar. It wasn't just attacking. It was defending. Every move it made was precise, calculated, and full of purpose. Charon wasn't just fighting to survive, it was fighting to protect, to ensure that the balance of the world wasn't destroyed by these invaders. The Kalanar soldiers scrambled to regroup, their armor flashing as they drew weapons, but they were no match for Charon's power. The tiger moved with unmatched grace, dodging blows and countering with devastating strikes. Its glowing fur illuminated the darkening skies as it tore through the enemy ranks. Alex stood back, his breath caught in his throat. He had never seen Charon like this before. The creature he had raised, the creature he had called a pet, was now something far greater, a force of nature that could not be stopped. And as Charon tore through the Kalanar forces, Alex realized that they had underestimated not just his pet, but Earth itself. The power of the planet's guardian had been awakened. But But the battle was far from over. The Kalanar leader, now enraged, unleashed a devastating wave of energy from his gauntlet, aimed directly at Charon. The energy surged through the air, crackling with destructive force. It was powerful enough to obliterate entire cities, and it was aimed at the tiger. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. Alex's heart raced as he watched the energy approach. He feared for Charon. The tiger seemed to sense the danger, its fur glowing brighter in response to the threat. In that moment, Alex knew that Charon wasn't just a creature anymore. It was something far more powerful, and it was fighting not only for survival but for the future of Earth. With a deafening roar, Charon leaped into the path of the energy blast, its body glowing with a brilliant light that seemed to merge with the attack itself. The blast collided with the tiger, and for a moment, there was nothing but a blinding flash. The ground shook, and the sky was filled with a deafening sound of energy colliding with energy. When the light faded, the Kalanar soldiers stood frozen in shock. Charon was still standing, its fur glowing with even greater intensity. The energy blast had been absorbed, and the tiger was unharmed. The Kalanar leader, now visibly shaken, took a step back, realizing that this battle was not one they could win. Charon's roar echoed across the battlefield, a triumphant cry that shook the very air. The Kalanar knew, in that moment, that they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated not only Alex but the very planet they sought to conquer. And as Charon's eyes met Alex's, they both knew that this war had only just begun. The air was thick with tension as the Kalanar soldiers regrouped, their confidence shattered by Charon's display of power. They had thought Earth would be an easy conquest, a planet ripe for the taking. Instead, they had encountered something far beyond their expectations, a creature they couldn't understand, and a human who refused to back down. Charon stood tall, his glowing eyes fixed on the Kalanar leader, a low growl rumbling from his chest. The tiger had become a symbol of hope, of defiance, and now it stood between the invaders and the Earth's future. Alex could feel the weight of the moment. The battle was not over. It had only just begun. The Kalanar leader, once so confident, now looked uncertain. His soldiers, who had once feared nothing, were visibly shaken. They had witnessed Charon's power firsthand, and they knew they were no match for it. But the Kalanar were not known for retreating. They had conquered countless worlds, and they would not be easily defeated. The leader's eyes glinted with fury and determination. He had not come this far to be defeated by a pet and its human. "Regroup," the leader commanded, his voice cold. "We will not let one creature stand in the way of the Kalanar Empire. Prepare the skyfire cannons. If the beast will not bow, then it will burn." Alex's stomach churned as he heard those words. He had no idea what the skyfire cannons were, but the look in the leader's eyes told him everything he needed to know. They were not ordinary weapons. They were weapons designed to destroy on a massive scale, capable of turning entire cities to ash. Alex turned to Charon, his heart filled with both fear and hope. "We have to stop them, Charon. We can't let them destroy everything." The tiger's eyes glowed brighter in response, as if it understood the gravity of the situation. It was no longer just a pet. It was a guardian. And it was ready to fight until the very end. As the Kalanar began to activate their skyfire cannons, Alex could feel the ground shake beneath his feet. The energy building in the cannons was unlike anything he had ever felt before. It was pure destruction, the kind of power that could wipe out entire civilizations in seconds. And it was aimed directly at them. Charon growled, its powerful body tensing as it prepared for the inevitable. The battle between the Kalanar and the humans was no longer just a clash of physical strength. It was a battle of wills, of survival. If they didn't act fast, the entire town would be obliterated in an instant. Alex looked around, searching for anything that could help. Then, his eyes landed on the town's old power plant, just a few hundred meters away. It was a relic from a time long past, a structure that was no longer in use, but Alex knew it still held immense potential. It had enough power to disrupt the Kaliner's cannons for just long enough for Charon to strike. Without hesitation, Alex turned to Charon. "Charon, we need to buy some time. Head for the power plant. I'll meet you there." The tiger nodded, as if it understood. It was no longer just following Alex, it was working with him, its instincts and intelligence in perfect sync with his own. Together, they would face the Kaliner. Together, they would fight for Earth. As Charon sprinted toward the power plant, Alex ran alongside him, his heart pounding. The Kaliner, realizing what they were doing, unleashed a barrage of fire from their cannons. The sky lit up with flashes of bright energy, but Charon was too fast. With every leap, the tiger dodged the blasts, its body moving with fluid grace, each motion as if it were part of a much larger plan. The closer they got to the power plant, the more intense the fire from the Kaliner became. Alex could feel the heat from the energy blasts as they whizzed past him, narrowly missing their target. He knew they didn't have much time. They had to reach the plant before the Kaliner could lock onto them completely. They reached the power plant just as the Kaliner's fire intensified. Charon leaped through the entrance of the plant, and Alex followed, barely dodging the energy blasts that cracked the ground behind them. The doors slammed shut behind them, leaving them in the dimly lit interior of the plant. Alex didn't waste any time. He rushed to the control panel, his fingers flying over the buttons as he worked to override the plant's security systems. He had no formal training in this, but years of tinkering with technology had taught him how to improvise. His hands shook with urgency as he activated the plant's emergency override system. The plant's massive generators hummed to life, filling the air with a low, vibrating hum. Alex felt a surge of hope. This was their chance. If he could redirect the power, he could overload the Kaliner's cannons just long enough for Charon to strike. But he needed more time, and the Kaliner weren't going to give them any. Suddenly, the doors of the plant burst open. The Kaliner had found them. The Kaliner leader entered, his eyes burning with rage. "You think you can stop us?" he growled. "You think a power plant and a beast can stand against the might of the Kaliner?" Alex glanced at Charon, who was already preparing to fight. The tiger's fur was now glowing brighter than ever before, its muscles coiling like springs. Charon was ready for the final confrontation. "No," Alex said, his voice steady. "But together, we can." And with that, Charon lunged toward the leader, a powerful roar escaping from its throat. The battle for Earth was about to reach its climax. The air crackled with intensity as Charon stood poised, his glowing eyes fixed on the Kaliner leader. The power plant behind them hummed with potential, its massive generators ready to release a surge of energy. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline as he stared at the enemy forces, knowing that the fate of Earth and his own life hung in the balance. The Kaliner leader snarled, his hand gripping the hilt of a glowing sword that seemed to hum with an energy of its own. His soldiers lined up behind him, their weapons raised and ready. The time for talking was over. Now there would only be action. "You truly believe you can stop us?" The Kaliner leader sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "You are nothing but insects beneath our feet, and your pathetic creature is no match for the might of the Kaliner Empire." Alex didn't respond. He didn't need to. He knew what Charon was capable of, and more importantly, he knew that their unity, his bond with the tiger, was something the Kaliner could never understand. Without warning, the leader raised his sword, its blade crackling with energy, and lunged toward Charon. The Kaliner soldiers followed, a sea of advanced weaponry aimed at the pair. But Charon was ready. With a speed that was almost impossible to follow, the tiger leaped forward, its massive paws striking the ground with force. The ground trembled beneath its weight as Charon collided with the leader's soldiers, knocking them aside with powerful blows. But the Kaliner leader was quick. He swung his sword with brutal precision, and Charon barely managed to dodge the strike. The blade was powerful, crackling with energy that could slice through steel. The tiger's glowing fur shimmered as it twisted out of the way, its fangs bared, ready to retaliate. Alex watched in awe. Charon wasn't just a pet, it was a force of nature, a guardian. It moved with the grace and power of something much more than a simple creature. The bond between them was palpable, and Alex realized that it wasn't just Charon's power that made him formidable, it was the way they worked together. They understood each other without words, a silent communication that allowed them to anticipate each other's moves. This connection was what gave them the edge. Alex stepped back, keeping his eyes on the battle, his mind focused. The colony leader was strong, but Charon was faster. The tiger's glowing form was like a beacon in the chaos, and the colony leader struggled to keep up. Alex knew the fight wouldn't be easy, but they had one advantage: the power plant. Turned and quickly ran to the control panel, his heart pounding as he worked to manipulate the plant systems. The colony hadn't disabled the plant's core, so there was still hope. He just had to buy Charon enough time to wear down the leader. As Alex worked furiously, the sounds of battle filled the air. Charon fought with a fury Alex had never seen before, leaping through the air to land blows on the colony soldiers, knocking them aside with ease. The tiger's powerful roars echoed across the battlefield, and Alex knew that the fight was more than just about them. It was about the survival of humanity itself. Charon's tail swished with immense power, knocking the colony soldiers back. As they attempted to close in, the tiger's glowing eyes locked with Alex's for a brief moment, as if to say, "I'm ready." That was all Alex needed. He turned back to the control panel, focusing on the task at hand. The plant was nearly at full power, and the Skyfire cannons would soon be in range. He had to act fast. The colony leader's fury grew as Charon continued to evade him, but the colony had one final trick up their sleeve. The leader raised his hand, and a second wave of soldiers emerged from the shadows, their weapons drawn. They surrounded Charon, cutting off its escape routes. It was then that Alex realized how dire the situation was. Charon was powerful, but it was only one creature against an army. And now, the colony leader was closing in, intent on ending the fight once and for all. In that moment, Alex's fingers found the right switch. The plant's emergency override was ready. He had just one chance. With a deep breath, he pressed the button, sending a surge of energy through the plant's core. The massive generators hummed, and the energy began to build, crackling with intensity. "Charon!" Alex shouted. "Now!" With a roar that seemed to shake the very air, Charon leaped into the air, its body glowing brighter than ever. The colony soldiers fired their weapons, but Charon was too quick. It dodged their shots, moving with a fluidity that seemed almost impossible. In a single graceful motion, the tiger landed in the midst of the colony soldiers, knocking them aside with a single swipe of its powerful paw. But the colony leader was ready. He raised his sword, ready to strike, but Charon moved faster. In an instant, the tiger collided with the leader, knocking him off balance. The sword flew from his hand as Charon's massive paws pinned him to the ground. The colony leader struggled. Beneath the tiger, his eyes wild with rage and disbelief, Alex could see the fear in the leader's eyes. He had underestimated Charon, and now the balance of power had shifted. Charon wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting for the future of Earth. Alex ran toward the battle, his heart pounding in his chest. The energy from the power plant was now fully charged. The colony leader had no idea what was coming. Next, in a final desperate move, Alex activated the plant's core. The surge of energy shot through the air, sending a beam of pure, concentrated power straight toward the colony army. The beam struck with incredible force, knocking back the soldiers and throwing them to the ground. The colony leader screamed as the energy blast hit him, sending him flying across the battlefield. When the dust settled, the Kalana were scattered, their forces broken. The Kalina leader lay unconscious, defeated by the combined might of Charon and the power plant's energy. The battle was over. Charon stood over the fallen leader, its body still glowing with power. It was breathing heavily, but its eyes were unwavering. The tiger's bond with Alex had proven stronger than the might of the Kalina. Together, they had defended Earth, and together, they would continue to fight for its future. Alex approached Charon, his voice full of gratitude. "We did it, Charon. We saved Earth." The tiger's glowing eyes met his, and for a moment, there was no need for words. The bond between them spoke volumes. They had won. But the war was far from over. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. The hum of the power plant's generators still reverberated in the air, and the faint smell of burnt energy lingered in the atmosphere. Alex stood beside Charon, his eyes scanning the battlefield as the last remnants of the Kalina forces scattered or lay defeated. The Kalina leader, once so full of arrogance and power, was now unconscious, crumpled on the ground, his golden armor scorched and cracked. For a moment, Alex couldn't believe what had just happened. They had won. Earth had been saved. But the victory came with a heavy cost. The Kalina Empire was vast, and this battle, no matter how important, was only one small skirmish in a much larger war. He knew they hadn't seen the last of the invaders. There would be more, and next time, they wouldn't be so unprepared. Charon stood next to him, its glowing eyes still burning with the energy of the battle. The tiger was breathing heavily, its fur flickering with the last remnants of the power it had absorbed. The bond between them was undeniable, a connection forged through battle and survival. Alex reached out and placed a hand on Charon's back, feeling the pulse of energy coursing through the creature's body. "You did it," Alex said softly, his voice full of awe and gratitude. "You saved us. You saved Earth." Charon turned, its head slightly, locking eyes with Alex. The connection between them was deep, stronger than mere words. It was as if the tiger understood everything Alex was feeling, all the gratitude, all the weight of their victory. Alex looked at the wreckage of the battlefield, the Kalina soldiers scattered across the ground, their once mighty weapons now useless. The town behind them had been spared, thanks to Charon's quick thinking and his ability to protect Alex. But the world beyond this small corner of Earth was not so fortunate. The Kalina were a threat to the entire galaxy, and Earth was just one planet in their way. But there was something else weighing on Alex's mind. Something that had been nagging him since the battle began. What now? Alex murmured to himself, though Charon's sharp ears heard the question clearly. "We won the battle, but how do we win the war?" The silence lingered. Even Charon seemed to understand the gravity of the question. The victory over the Kalina leader was just one small step in a war that spanned across the stars. The Kalina would regroup, and they would return stronger. They wouldn't let a single defeat stop them. And Earth, despite its momentary victory, was now a target in a much larger conflict. But Alex wasn't going to let that reality break him. He had seen what Charon was capable of, and he knew that together, they could accomplish anything. The bond they shared, human and guardian, was stronger than any enemy the universe could throw at them. As Alex stood there, deep in thought, he heard a faint voice behind him. It was a soft whisper at first, but it grew louder as the figure approached. It was one of the townspeople, a woman who had been watching the battle from afar. Her face was a mixture of awe and fear as she walked toward Alex and Charon, her eyes locked on the giant tiger. "Is it over?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Are we safe?" Alex nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "For now. But this is only the beginning. The Kalina won't stop here. We have to be ready for whatever comes next." The woman looked at Charon, then back at Alex. "You and your creature, You saved us. But how do we fight them? How do we stand against such power? Alex's smile faded slightly. I don't know, he admitted. But we have something they don't have: unity. We're not alone in this. We've got each other, and we've got the strength of Earth behind us. The woman nodded slowly, as if processing the enormity of what Alex had said. Then we fight. We fight together. And in that moment, something shifted. Alex realized that Earth wasn't just a small, peaceful planet caught off guard by an alien invasion. It was a world with a spirit, with people willing to fight for each other. They had already come together in the face of disaster, and they would continue to do so. The bond between Alex and Sharon was a symbol of that spirit, a reminder that the greatest power of all was not in weapons or technology, but in the will to protect, to fight for what mattered. As the people of the town began to gather, drawn to the scene of victory, Alex's resolve hardened. He couldn't afford to think about the future in terms of fear or doubt. They had proven that they could stand against the Kalanar, but they had to be ready for the war that was coming. Sharon nuzzled Alex's shoulder, its warm breath a silent reassurance. They were ready. They had survived the first battle, but the real fight was only beginning. Alex turned to face the horizon, the setting sun casting a warm glow over the world they had just saved. The battle for Earth was far from over. But with Sharon by his side, and the strength of humanity behind him, he knew they would never back down. The days that followed the victory were strange. The battle had left its mark on everyone, physically, mentally, and emotionally. The town had been saved, but the war was far from over. The Kalanar forces had been pushed back for now, but Alex knew that they would regroup, adapt, and come back with renewed strength. They were not a species that would easily accept defeat. The people of the town, however, had found something they never thought possible: hope. Hope in the form of a massive, glowing tiger who had become their symbol of strength, and hope in Alex, the human who had refused to surrender. It wasn't just about Sharon anymore. It was about something bigger, something greater than themselves. It was about standing together, about fighting for their world, their families, and their future. Alex found himself in constant motion, preparing for the war that was inevitably coming. The town was already beginning to rebuild. People were reinforcing the walls, securing the fields, and gathering supplies. The local government had sent representatives to begin organizing a global defense strategy. People from different nations, united in their fear and resolve, began to work together. The battle had awakened a new sense of purpose within them. But in the back of Alex's mind, the question lingered: is it enough? The Kalanar Empire had advanced technology, powerful weapons, and an unyielding desire to conquer. What could a few humans and an alien creature do against such overwhelming odds? Sharon seemed to sense his doubt. The tiger was always by his side, a steady presence that radiated calm. Whenever Alex felt overwhelmed, he would turn to Sharon, and the tiger's unwavering gaze reminded him that there was still hope. They had beaten the Kalanar leader, but the real war was yet to begin. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the landscape, Alex found himself standing atop the hill overlooking the town. He was alone, save for Sharon, who sat beside him, its glowing eyes scanning the horizon. There was an eerie calmness in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Alex's thoughts drifted back to the moment when the Kalanar had first landed on Earth, the moment when everything had changed. He remembered the fear in the eyes of the people, the terror of the unknown. They had underestimated the power of Earth, and more importantly, the strength of its people. But that strength had to be harnessed. It had to be united, turning to face. Sharon, Alex spoke softly. We've won a battle, but the war is coming. The Kalanar won't stop here. They'll come for us again, and next time, they'll bring more forces. We need to be ready. Charon tilted its head slightly, as if listening to Alex's words. It let out a low growl, one that Alex had come to recognize as its way of reassuring him. No matter what came next, they would face it together. The bond they shared was stronger than any weapon or army. As if on cue, the distant sound of engines reached Alex's ears. He turned to see a fleet of ships descending from the sky, their silhouettes dark against the fading sunlight. These weren't Kalendar ships, not yet, but they were a reminder that the world was forever changed. The human race had stepped into the arena of intergalactic conflict, and they would need to be prepared. The ships landed softly, and soon, representatives from various nations disembarked. They were followed by scientists, military leaders, and civilians, all united by a common purpose: survival. They had come together to form an alliance, united front to face the Kalendar threat. Among the crowd, Alex saw familiar faces. The town's mayor, who had fought alongside them in the initial battle, greeted him with a firm handshake. Others came forward, offering their support, their resources, their knowledge. They were all in this together now. Earth was no longer just a solitary planet. It was part of something larger, a fragile link in the vast chain of the universe. The mayor looked at Alex, his eyes filled with determination. "We have a lot of work to do, but we've proven something today. We can stand up to the Kalendar. We can win this." Alex nodded, but the weight of responsibility was heavy on his shoulders. "We've won one battle, but there's much more to come, and we need to be ready for it." As the alliance leaders began to discuss strategies and plans, Alex took a moment to step back. He needed time to think. He needed to figure out how to turn the bond between Earth and Charon into a true force. How could they prepare the world for what was coming? How could they make sure Earth stood strong against the Kalendar Empire? But one thing was clear: Alex wasn't alone in this fight. He had the support of Charon, the people of Earth, and the growing alliance of nations that were now united in their shared struggle. Together, they would defend their world. Together, they would show the Kalendar that humanity wasn't weak. It was strong, it was resilient, and it would fight for its future. Charon stood beside him, its eyes unwavering, as if to say, "We are ready." The battle for Earth was far from over, but Alex knew one thing with certainty: they would face it together. And with that resolve, the dawn of a new era began. Asterisk.